Welcome to the Set Free Woman podcast, where transformation starts with you first. Together, we'll awaken your kingdom identity, embody your new heart, restore the marriage you have always longed for, and cultivate generations of freedom. Here we uncover the hidden codependent patterns, beliefs, and nervous system responses that keep women stuck in unhealthy marriage cycles and disconnected from who God created them to be. I'm Tara Reed, licensed therapist, coach, and founder of the Set Free Woman Intensive Healing Program. Let's dive into freedom, healing, and lasting transformation. Have you ever been traveling around or on a trip or somewhere and you see these old buildings? The architecture's just so unique. And at one point in time, you think, man, this building had so much potential as you look at it. I don't know about you guys, but there's something that really I love about sightseeing in historic areas. There's a nostalgia or something to it. And then when you go in, I don't know if you've ever been on a tour or anything like that to a old Victorian home or something, but you go in and there's a smell. And there's a culture and a history that just maybe awakens something deep inside. And maybe that's just something that's my unique design, but I absolutely love it. And what I love even more is the ability to be able to take one of these old buildings, these old structures that are outdated and have been abandoned and used and misused in such a way, and to be able to restore them back to new life. And this is something that my husband and I actually have discovered over the context of our marriage, is that we actually really like doing this together. And we've learned so much about ourselves in the process of this. But we have currently restored two buildings. One is my office building, and it used to be an old house that just really was abandoned and messy, used and not kept well. And it was tin on the outside, this turquoise tin, and it was just really rough. And what happened is I walked into this building. It's the building I'm in right now. And I remember looking around, and my husband too, and it was just, guys, it was really rough. There's concrete floors everywhere. There's holes in the walls. I wish I could paint the picture. In fact, I do have a picture. I'll show it here in this podcast so you can kind of get an understanding before and after. And so we're in this building, and we walked in and we're like, this is it. This is the building. This is going to be where we house the life center, where we serve our community. I'm able to do my therapy practice, and we could see all the potential of probably what it was originally meant to be. We also did this with our house. It was straight out of 1970 house, and we completely went through each room, designing it with a new beauty and a new luster and a new feel that when you walked in, you could experience comfort and relaxing. And it was just really cool to be able to do. And we're actually on our third restoration project of decking out a Sprinter van, and we're putting a whole new camper system in it so we can travel the world together. And we love to do this. And each building or structure that we restore reminds me of what Jesus did for us. Because of sin, at the very beginning of time, there was a fall, and all of us had a separation from God. And we lost ourselves. We lost that original design, that part of ourself that was pure and untouched by sin and the world and the corruption and the distortion of the enemy. So what happens is we start to run down, like the buildings that my husband and I have been able to restore. And we start to function in ways that we were originally meant to function. And in marriage, we start to show up in ways that are not helpful, ways that deteriorate the relationship versus build it up. And I love the restoring part of things because it reminds me of Jesus. Because when Jesus came, he restored us all back to God. All of your unique design, all of your unique qualities. In fact, the Word of God says you are fearfully and wonderfully made. And if we are fearfully and wonderfully made, then why are we not showing up in relationship like this? Most of the time, it's because we are still walking around in old bodies that have been impacted by the fall, by sin, by the world, and our identities are still linked to those old parts of ourselves that God never actually intended for them to be linked to. And so even though we may be Christians, we still struggle with some level of codependency because my brain is hardwired towards those old patterns that are no longer serving me. But God's original design of who I am was fearfully and wonderfully made. The original design of the buildings that my husband and I have restored, they were really meant to be beautiful at the time. But because of the world and the harsh circumstances and the inhabitants, it just deteriorated over time. And these, ladies, are how our marriages get to the places that they are today. But have you ever asked yourself, what was my unique design? If God created me, uniquely me, he knitted me together in my mother's womb. He created me with specific giftings and attributes and ways of thinking. Have you ever asked yourself what that specific, unique design is? When I started to ask myself this question that was separate from my husband, it was really hard for me to answer. In our codependency and in that entangled, insecure, meshed pattern where I'm not okay if you're not okay and you need to complete me, and these fear-based strategies that our old selves really found was how we connected in a very dysfunctional way, it was really hard for me to ask myself the question, who am I? And through several of these restoration projects and a lot of transformation in my husband and my marriage, I really leaned into recognizing that the old part of me, I had to learn how to put off so I could put on the new part of me. Scripture tells us to do this. In these old buildings, these old restorative buildings that we've done, there were so many walls that had to be taken out and new ones built. So many structures that had to be broken down and new ones up. Old plumbing removed and new ones in. So there's this putting off the old and putting on the new. Most of us can identify the old that we don't like. It's these borrowed identities, these insecurities, these ways my brain thinks, these shame-based patterns, these sin natures into us. But a lot of us struggle with the remodel, the restoration part. We can identify with the old parts of us that are not working, but so often we cannot actually lean into the parts that are. We don't know how to do that. It's so foreign to us. And when my husband and I really started to discover that we were very different from each other, we discovered two things. One, both of us had tried to make each other, which isn't helpful, because in my thinking, this is the right way of doing things. I'm the right way of doing things. And in his thinking, that is the right way of doing things. And so we literally would try to make each other because that's what we thought was the good design. And the most beautiful awareness we had in our marriage actually came several years back when we took the Gallup StrengthsFinder assessment And we completed this assessment that has your top 5 strengths in it. And our strengths were like parallel difference. And I don't know what it was about that particular assessment and that awareness that God cultivated in us, that the person that had been in my life for years, my husband, that I had tried to make me for years, was actually a completely separate and different person from me. He thought different than me. He functioned different than me. He had different wounds than me. He perceived different than me. There was a huge awareness in us that we are not the same person. And we started to dive deep into our individuality, the fearfully and wonderfully made parts of ourselves with super amounts of curiosity. And we learned a lot about ourselves. And the first building that we restored, we butted heads a lot. My husband would buzz around here, and he goes to 5 different things at all at one time and never really finishes one thing. And I'm like, no, you got to finish one thing before you move on to the next thing. And we had these weird conflicts. And here's the crazy thing is that when I actually backed off and didn't have to have it my way, even though he buzzed around and did all these things, he actually got them finished. So it was like this huge epiphany that people could actually finish things differently than me. And there was this awareness that just kept happening. And he's really good at the craftsmanship and the building of things. I'm really good at design. And we had to learn how to talk about that and how to articulate that so that both of us were on the same page, understanding the same thing. And until I actually learned about me, how I worked, how I functioned, what God created in me, the spiritual giftings in me, my preferences, the things I didn't like, the things I was okay with, the things I wasn't okay with, the type of music I liked, the type of music I did not like, the way my brain functioned, if I was an introvert or an extrovert, if I needed to process out loud or process inside myself, all these questions that needed clarity, I had no clarity for. What I did have was me being able to see my husband and say, you're not making me feel good, so you need to change. You're not seeing me, so you need to change. You're making me feel anxious, so you need to change. Where's all of the power going? Yes, it's going towards him. And God didn't give me the spirit of others' control. He gave me the spirit of self-control. And one of the greatest gifts we can have with self-control is to be able to look inward and have self-awareness. And so I went on the journey of discovering me. And it felt very selfish at first. And then I started to see the fruit of it. And then I started to see God showing up all over in my unique design, all throughout my story of how he shaped and shifted and started this restoration project to where I am today. And the same is true for my husband. Here's the problem. Typically, we expect our spouse to know our unique design, to be able to see us, to be able to understand us, to be able to complete us, to be able to obviously see what I need, right? These belief systems, they should just know it, and they don't. And so when they don't give me what I need or what I think I need, or I feel something and they don't fix it for me, all of a sudden I feel invisible and I feel alone and I'm not okay. And the women that I work with so often, like myself, when we are working through this tension, I ask them, what is it that you did need in that moment? And so often, they don't know. They don't know what they needed because they have spent so much time on the pain of what other people are causing them, aka their spouse, that they don't actually know the solution to the pain. And self-awareness allows us to look inside ourselves to identify what we need. Because here's the thing. If we don't know what we need, how on earth is someone else supposed to know what we need? There's no way they can. So they guess. And you want to know how they guess? They give you what they would need. They give you what would work for them. I'm going to give you a best example ever. On the restoration of this building, there were so many times that I felt overwhelmed. I used to feel so overwhelmed by too many tasks and too much chaos. And I would feel really overwhelmed, and I would be problem solving all the ways to get myself underwhelmed. And I'd feel very anxious, and that energy would come. And I would start to tell my husband all the problems. There's this, and there's this, and there's that, and you're not doing this, you're not doing that. And he would say the phrase, honey, it's going to be fine. And I would become livid because I would feel so angry that he was just dismissing me. Or he would give me 500 ways to solve it. You should just do this, or you could do that, you could do this, you could do that. And I'm like, I already thought about all those things. And when I presented my frustration, he presented me something, his solution, that actually didn't hit the nail on the head for me. And so as we were leaning into our unique design, I said to him, honey, that's not helpful when you do this and this. What would be helpful? I had to ask myself that question because I did not know. What did I need when I was overwhelmed? And I had to really sit and say, okay, Lord, my unique design. What does my unique design need when I'm overwhelmed? And for me, sounds weird, but I need just a hug. That's all I need is a hug that helps me feel grounded and supported and not alone. I don't need words. I don't need suggestions. And I certainly don't need it's going to be fine. So I'm like, okay, I need to have a conversation with my husband because it's my job to teach other people my unique design. I cannot teach him something that I don't know, but once I know it, I can teach him my unique design. And so I had a conversation with him and I said, honey, when I'm overwhelmed, this is the feedback you give me. And that's not what I need. What I actually need is a hug. And he's, really? What? You just need a hug? That's all. That's all I need. And he was blown away. And I'm like, what would you need when you are overwhelmed? And I would just need you to tell me it's going to be okay. Or maybe give me some suggestions on how to become underwhelmed. And I'm like, oh my goodness. He gave to me what he would have needed, but it's not what I would have needed. And so the next time there's a rupture, it was quite comical because I'm laying on the concrete floor in this building and I'm crying my eyes out. I'm so overwhelmed. And he comes back in. It was a little extra. He comes back in. He's, honey, come here. And he picks me up and he gives me a hug. And he holds me there for a few minutes until I'm okay. And I was okay. And then I step back. I'm like, you did it. You did it. You did what I needed you to do. And that was so hard. I just had to bite my tongue. I wanted to say 1,000 things, but I didn't. And ladies, I had to first know what I needed. I had to see me. I had to be okay with what I needed first. Then present it in a request form and not a criticism. And he was able to show up and he was able to do it. Did he do it perfectly every time? No. Did I have to remind him of my unique design? Yes. I also learned what he needs in those moments. Am I responsible for it? No. Is he responsible for my needs? No. But are we responsible to each other? Yes. We made a commitment to do life with each other. It's part of loving and being in the closest community possible, which is you and your spouse in relationship. But we have to know our unique design, and we must be willing to teach it to each other. Because I guarantee you, no matter how many years you have been married with your spouse, there are parts of your spouse that you don't know. There are parts of your spouse that you cannot see, and you're going to guess with what you would need, and it could be the furthest thing from what they need. And they're going to guess what you need based off of what they would need, and it could be the furthest thing. And so your challenge today, your challenge is to really start asking yourself, when we have a rupture, what is it that's really bothering me? What is it that I really need for myself? If I'm overwhelmed, what does my overwhelmed need? If I'm anxious, what is driving that bus? And how do I communicate my unique design with my spouse? I cannot communicate something I am unaware of. And so let's go on a hunt and a journey for discovering of your uniqueness. In this podcast, I will put several links to resources that can help you really start to discover that. Have your spouse do it too if they're willing to. And start talking about how we're different. Remember, differences are not better than or less than. That's a vertical relationship. Horizontal relationships are relationships where we're uniquely different, but equally the same. Think about that for the day. Guys, happy discovering yourself and courage to communicate it to your spouse. Thank you for joining me on the Set Free Woman podcast. I pray today's episode gave you deeper understanding, practical tools, and renewed hope for what God can do in your heart, your marriage, and your family. If you'd like to go deeper into your own healing journey, I invite you to watch my free training, The Simple Approach Christian Women Are Using to Save Their Troubled Marriages. In this training, you'll learn why marriages get stuck in painful cycles, how your story shaped the way you relate and connect, and the step-by-step process to healing the whole person, body, soul, and spirit. Until next time, remember, you can only love others with the measure you allow yourself to be loved. To learn more, visit thesetfreewoman.com. I'd love to walk alongside you in your healing journey.